Howdy folks, welcome back to Carter Hall Farm.
Welcome to Carter Hall Farm.
This is video 3 of my chicken coop build video series, and on today's video we'll be installing the rafters that will eventually hold our metal roof. Let's get to work.
And the first step to installing our roof rafters coming off of the side of the raised center aisle is to establish a level line. This line will mark the top of the roof rafters as they come down to meet the lower exterior wall of the coop. And the rafters are easily secured by just screwing through the wall into the top of the rafter.
Bingo.
Grab that?
Nope.
All right, let's give that another shot. Our second rafter falls right on a stud in the wall, so we'll screw from the outside in. Next up, we'll measure for our blocking.
Looks like 1 foot and a quarter, just shy of a quarter.
And that measurement will be the standard width between the roof rafters for our entire project. This blocking is actually key. It'll really help prevent drafts in the coop, but it'll also help to slow the ability for insects, small birds, that sort of thing, mice, rats, from getting into the coop. And we're going to follow this process all the way around for the lower roof rafters. And then we'll start building out the upper roof rafters. This is a little bit more traditional in that we're joining 2 of the rafters and then attaching them to the sides of the walls. And to provide a little extra stability and strength, we're putting a cross brace in there that really will shore up the rafters. And this is just a quick summary of how we measured out our rafters. There's no science behind this necessarily. We're just looking for an equal spacing. And also, you need to get the spacing right for the width of the metal roofing that you're going to be installing. You want to make sure that the edges fall on a rafter. And also, for the same reasons, installing the blocking across the top section of our roof. In a moment, I'll give you a much better summary on the angles and such of our rafters and how we built them out. Obviously, the easiest way to go is to calculate how many rafters you need, prefab all of them, and then the final build here goes pretty quickly. And like with everything else, you want to make sure that your roof rafters are level and plumb. But before I finish installing all the roof rafters, here in the middle of the upper section of the roof, I'm going to install the lower box of my cupola. And this is a functioning cupola. Cupolas were used heavily up until about the middle of the 20th century. And what they do is they capture heat that's naturally rising through a structure, and they accelerate the flow of air through the structure. So theoretically, you're bringing cool air through the bottom, and that hot air rushes up through your cupola, kind of a natural form of air conditioning, as well as ensuring that I don't have a lot of stagnant, stale air sitting in the coop, trying to make the chickens as comfortable as they can be. So here I've got my height set on one side, and I secured the box of the cupola. Now I'm using just some scrap wooden blocking to get everything nice and level and centered, and then I'm going to secure it to this rafter, which of course is centered on my box, and then I'll build out the rafters from there. Okay, next up here is an explanation of how I built these upper rafters. There's no design science or anything behind the slope that I picked. I picked 27 degrees for the angles. So that'll be 27 degrees for the cuts on both ends. And that will ensure that my rafter tail, the outside end of the rafter, is also nice and plumb. And then I chose the length that I wanted based on the overhang that I wanted, which is 28.25 for my coop. Give me a nice overhang to ensure I'm getting the rainwater as far away from the upper raised center aisle wall as best I can. You don't want too much water splashing back on that. Try and keep it dry, prevent that rot as long as possible. And of course I'm using the coated exterior deck screws, the same screws that I've used throughout this project to build out my rafters. Using pressure treated material where necessary. Trying to use the building materials that'll give me the greatest longevity to get the most time out of this coop as I can. Now installing the cross brace, just a couple of quick measurements here to get an equal distance from the peak of our rafter. This cross bracing really goes a long way to shore up this rafter. It's strong without it. It's very, very strong with this cross brace. And now back to the install. We'll go ahead and get this rafter secured to our cupola box and take out our blocking. And what 7-year-old doesn't want to climb to the highest point of the coop for a good look around?
Hi, bud.
Hi.
Pretty high up there.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's time to build my side doors. And the way I designed this was 2 fairly large doors that open outward and no threshold or anything here on the floor. So when it comes time to clean out the coop, I can sweep everything out this very large opening straight into a wheelbarrow and take it straight over to the compost pile. The build of the doors is pretty simple. The overall opening is 59.75 inches wide. So I'm going to build my doors at 27 inches a piece to accommodate a 54-inch opening. That'll give me plenty of room on the sides and most importantly in the middle. What I've run into in the past building sheds and such is that if you build the doors to open exactly right at the dimension, they get hung up when these 2x4s try to spread apart. So I'm going to give myself a pretty good gap, and then I'm going to fill that with some 2x material to make a nice airtight closure. That way, to eliminate the drafts that chickens just don't like. Now these 2x4s, very simply cut, straight cut on each end, and I'm just going to build the doors and box them together, and then I'm going to put these plywood gussets or corner braces in the corners just to strengthen things up. That should be plenty strong for these doors that are only going to be opened up about once or twice a year. Let's go ahead and build our doors.
Now, as you can see, this is a really simple build. Basically building a rectangle out of 2x4s and then securing the plywood corner gussets. That really goes a long way to strengthening up a simple structure like this. And then of course the T111 on the other side will add a tremendous amount of rigidity to the door. Checking to make sure the framing is square, good to go. And here's our plywood corner gusset. Now I'm going to attach this using both screws and glue. I'm going to mark out the extent of the gusset so I don't overuse my glue. I'm going to put a nice healthy bead of glue down and then press the gusset in place. Then I'll secure it with some screws. Now, I don't know if you have much experience gluing two pieces of wood together. It's glue and wood have been used for hundreds, maybe even thousands of years. And once that glue sets up, it's hard to find a stronger bond than wood glue and wood. It's just incredible how they bond together. I'll do the same thing on the opposite corner of our door.
Okay, that's it. Pretty simple door build. 4 pieces of wood, the plywood gussets on the corners. Let's go ahead and knock out one more of these doors. We'll put the T111 on. With the doors framed up, it's time to put the T111 on. Now, when I cut out the T111 for this wall here, I marked left door and right door. And the reason why I did that was so that it would be much easier when it came time to build the doors, line up my lines with the doors so that when you look at it, everything lines up. Nice touch. So then it's just a simple process of putting it onto the door that you framed up. But when I do that, I see that I've got a big overhang here. Not to worry, we're going to cut that, and that will be the first part of the second door, the right door. And that's because the sheets of T111 don't exactly line up with the dimensions for my door. So we'll cut this off, put that onto the right-hand door. Okay, well, all that's left now is to put the trim on the doors and shim them and hang them into place. It's getting pretty late today. I'm going to put the tools away. We'll hang these doors tomorrow.
Well, right as I was getting ready to head for the barn, as they say, the big guys showed up and they wanted to go ahead and get the top of the cupola in place. Don't want to turn them away. Can't do this myself, and they were ready, willing, and able to knock her out. So we went ahead and got the top of the cupola in place.
Come on, do it.
And do one dib, Aiden? Wow. You all right up there, Dad?
I did not do a build video on the cupola. It's the first time I've ever built anything like this. Undoubtedly, I'll build other structures here around the farm, and I'll do a cupola build video somewhere down the road.
Right there on the top, that marks the back.
But this was actually a lot of fun to build. As I said, it's a functioning cupola, so those vents actually work, and it's got a witch's hat on it, so you can see how it's not a straight slope on the roof. So it was actually a fun build. And you can have a cupola on a chicken coop without a rooster weather vane. Picked one up offline. It's actually a really nice quality copper weather vane, and it came with all the attachment hardware. The flat piece will accommodate any slope, and here's where you insert the mast of the weather vane. I'm just going to go ahead and kind of loosely put this together, and then I'll grab my level, go up on the roof, set this on the peak of the cupola, and get it nice and plumb and secure to the roof, and then tighten down those screws.
It's on. Can I open these doors? Are you sure this is stable?
I think so.
Step. He went all the way to the. Not gonna.
Hey Dilly,
What?
will you bring me an 11 and a 12 millimeter socket?
Proud father whose 7-year-old son can identify every socket in a socket set,
All right, buddy.
and he's got a heck of an arm. And the mast of our weather vane goes together pretty simply. A couple of screws here to tighten down once you get it in the right spot. And I'll use the compass on my phone to ensure that I am aligned with
These screws.
the cardinal headings. I'll get everything tightened down, and then I'll set her in place up on the cupola.
Okay. Here, throw me that little screwdriver, buddy. Pause it.
And that is pretty sharp. Really like that. Nice topper to the chicken coop. And as usual, we're drawing a crowd. It's really something how whenever you're doing anything on the farm, if the cows can come over and take a look, they're going to stop by. They are very, very curious animals. And we didn't get to finish those doors, but please join me in video 4, where we will finish the construction, trimming out, and installation of our chicken coop doors. Sure hope you enjoyed this video, folks. We'll see you back here next time at Carter Hall Farm.